Hey, how's everybody doing? How are you, Ben? All right. Test one, two, test check, check. Welcome to the wild, wild web.
All right, I
That's what
apologize,
it is.
everybody. My this microphone. We don't need that today.
Yeah.
We're gonna use our webcam audio.
Yeah, there you go. Sounds
What's up?
good.
Oh, so that means nobody heard any of my beautiful intro either. Oh man.
All right.
Uh, hey everybody, I'm Ben from Universal Audio. Welcome to a wonderful office hours with it's always a little bit of a fun intro here. So I'm joined by Peter Moshay from you're dialing in from upstate New York, yeah?
Yep, yep. Up in Pauling, New York, just about an hour and 15 minutes or 20 minutes just directly north of Manhattan,
Oh,
Big
nice.
Apple.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So for people who aren't familiar with your work or what you're doing somehow, how did you end up at Daryl's house? What's been your journey into this really cool gig where you're kind of combining front of house and recording and everything, live streaming all in one?
Yeah. I've been working with Daryl and John for uh, over 30 years, since
Mm-hmm.
87. And I started off doing tech work with them. I came from the live world. I've toured with lots of different bands over the years,
Mm-hmm.
from Barry Manilow, Journey, The Cars, and lots of different bands. Those are some of the bigger names. But so when we started doing this with Daryl and John, I was Daryl and John's production manager and front of house guy for many years. And Daryl came to me with the idea and said, he had gotten Lyme disease and said, traveling is becoming a pain in the ass. Is there a way with this web that we can do I can do a show here and then just broadcast to the people instead of me going to them?
Yeah.
Why don't, or, going to their city? Why don't we do it from here and then broadcast it over the web? And he had the idea for the show. And when we started doing the Live from Daryl's House TV show, uh, the internet was just starting with DSL, just coming out of
Yeah.
dial-up modems, just starting to hit with high speed. So it was a challenge.
So you guys were broadcasting on DSL speeds?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Oh
definitely.
man.
And we didn't even have it at the time. We didn't
Yeah.
have it where we were because we're upstate here.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually had to go over to my friend's house because he had it to actually watch the show because we only had dial-up at the time.
Yeah.
But we plotted through. We started up with lower grade audio, the best I could get. It was real encoder at the time,
Mm-hmm.
all real player for the web. But it slowly got better over the years, and luckily DSL and cable modem became popular. Thank
Yeah.
God for all of us. And so we were able to upgrade the show along with the internet. So you'll see our
Mm-hmm.
earlier shows were all in like 640 by 480,
Yep.
and the audio was stereo at when I could get stereo AAC audio quality,
Mm-hmm.
and I just bumped it up every time I could. We would watch and see what people are watching it on, and
Mm-hmm.
see if people had faster connections, because you can kind of see the metrics of how people are watching it.
Yep.
And we started to see people were getting it. So I said, let's bump it up. And we kept bumping it up along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So the audio, of course, was important.
Yeah.
I've always been careful of that all the way through it. So the show's been going on for more than 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, there's close to 100 episodes of that show.
That's
and
crazy.
then we opened this club. And the reason we opened this club, which I now, run the music part of the club here,
Mm-hmm.
is the house that Daryl was filming at, we had to, he sold it. And we needed a new place to film at. And this place was down the street from where our studio is. And the guy was moving. We decided to move in.
Yeah.
And Daryl had always wanted to open a club. And
Mm-hmm.
so it filled two perfect things. We get to film our show here too, because we
Yep.
film the episodes of the show here. And then we have concerts 5 days a week. And I
Wow.
stream a lot of the live shows. So you can see a lot of the live shows. You can go to our Facebook page, Daryl's House Club
Mm-hmm.
Facebook page, and you can see a lot of the live shows there. I don't do every show, but I do them when I can.
Yeah. And
So it's
so
a small operation.
so the studio that we're looking at right now, this is this just for the streaming side of things, or is this also the front of house booth?
No, there's a separate front of house console because, doing the streaming from the front of house console, it would not sound good because
Yeah.
the room out there, it's about a 60 by 60 room. It's like being in a big living room, which is
Mm-hmm.
great when you want to see a show.
Yeah.
But for the mix out in front, depending on the band, you don't need a lot of guitar amp in the front of house mix sometimes, or you don't need a ton of drums if the drummer's a super hard hitter.
Yep.
So this control room is so I can stream, and also I record our TV show here. So it's a full-fledged recording and HD video capture as well.
Nice. So so kind of the way that you got into this world, though, you've done a mixture of being on the road and also being in the studio yourself, right?
Yeah. I've done a lot of the records with Daryl and John over the years as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also their front of house guy, and I've done both. And I do a lot of the shows here. I'd say probably about 95% of the shows.
Yeah.
Bands that come in, they use the house guy quite often. So I get to practice mixing every day.
Isn't that kind of like the best part? Like that was going to be my question. Is like what skills kind of transfer? Because they're two very different disciplines. Like you have two very different end goals there. But what to your experience? What are some of the transferable skills that kind of apply to both?
Well, being prepared.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the number one thing people always ask me, like what's the most, what are the most important things? It's like being prepared to do this. Like for streaming a live show here, sometimes I'm mixing front of house and the live stream. And I have an iPad to control the front of house console and the live board. And I'm sitting there with both. And I walk back and forth and juggle them. So I get to, luckily, I'll only live stream a show from here if I get a good sound check and I can record the sound check
and check your work.
And be able to get it dialed in after the sound check prior. Because if you don't do that, it's suicide.
Totally.
It's a Hail Mary.
So in terms of like microphones and you mentioned like because it is a smaller room, sometimes you don't have like drum overheads or you don't you skip certain mics. Does that affect what then you end up going to broadcast, or would you like set up overheads just for the streaming side of things?
Yeah, if I'm streaming, I definitely set up more microphones, no question.
Yeah.
And if I'm recording, like I record a lot of shows for people too that they'll put out as a DVD, because luckily we have all this great stuff that we do our show with. And a lot of artists go, well, can I record the show and do it with a video? And actually, we've put out quite a few DVDs and live concerts from here because it's all here ready to go. I mean, a show and a recording is the same here.
Yeah.
And I've actually done, we do albums here too. on the 2 days that we're closed, I'll come in here and track because the room sounds phenomenal here. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just quick and easy. And it's a familiar setting for a band. You know, you set up, you can play with monitors, or I can give you individual, mixers if you want. I
Yep.
could put your amps in another room because there's no audience if we're going to record an album.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives me the opportunity to do both, and have this great room.
That's really
And I
cool.
have a studio at my house if I want to mix too. And I got this.
Nice.
So,
Well, so it's we can already see over your shoulder. You got a big rack of those 8-channel Focusrite pre's.
yeah.
And then what's the board behind you?
The board is it's the old Sony DMX-R100, which is the Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
I've had it since it came out. This is like the first shipment of them that came over.
Yeah.
And I just know it really well. And we all love the Sonox stuff,
Yeah.
Sony stuff. So I just needed a console, and of course I had it, and I know it. It's fast. It sounds great.
Yep.
So that's what I use for the streams.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the mix needs to be totally different than front of house. So I do it on this, and I can control it as well with an iPad if I need to.
Nice.
So that makes it, using this other program, I can control the faders. It does have MIDI controllable faders.
I was gonna say that. I'm pretty sure that console came out way before iPads came out.
Yeah, absolutely. But luckily, they put MIDI implementation in it, so you're allowed. You can do it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool too. Like some people aren't familiar with that history of the Sony Oxford stuff and how it became Sonox, and it was basically this highly customizable digital based board that rocked.
Sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just sounds killer. Yeah.
And it's like every channel.
Sounds great. It's flexible.
Mm-hmm. And every
channel has everything on it.
Exactly.
Dedicated DSP.
Mm-hmm.
So every channel has a compressor and an EQ and a gate and an expander on it.
Yeah.
So it's similar like an SSL. I have an SSL at home, and I love working on it. And I'm just used to having everything right there when I need it, and you got to, you can't put a plug in when you're mixing a live show. You got to have it all ready to go at the helm.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives me the opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's
but
actually
also,
go ahead.
We're transition into how I do my effects, because I've always liked to use my effects, bring my effects with me. And of course, when I used to mix back in the day, I would bring my effects
big old rack
with me. Yeah, racks of gear, or the sound company would provide them.
Mm-hmm.
But I tended to bring my own rack of stuff that I was used to.
Yeah.
I mean, good engineers tend to bring what they're familiar with and what they like. It's your sound, just like a guitarist would bring their guitars.
Yep.
So, I'd bring that. But when I started using the UA stuff, I was like, I got to use this stuff on the road.
Yeah.
And I didn't personally devise it, but I created a way when I was first able to be able to bring my UA effects and use them live on the road. And that's what I do with all my effects, except for this guy up here, are UA effects I use for my stream, for the show and everything. Because I can bring it with me everywhere I go with just a twin. Actually, I have the original Apollo, Apollo 8, but that in a cheap laptop.
Yeah.
So I want to say this to everybody out there. I am using a 2012 13-inch MacBook Pro.
Yep.
That I bought used on Craigslist for $350. I put an SSD drive in it, but this is my effects rack that I bring with a twin for the Apollo 8 on the road for all my effects, and in here. And it's a blessing. I don't understand why every engineer in the world does not have this set up with them all the time.
Oh, totally.
It's crazy to me.
Because it literally doesn't. The computer doesn't matter in this scenario, right? All the heavy lifting is being done on the twin itself, and you're basically
exactly.
Well, actually, do you mind? Can you share your screen on there? Because
let's share the screen. I'll show everybody. Is it? I gotta switch over. Yeah.
Yep. So as part of getting Peter set up inside of Luna, you quickly saw you're like, oh, you saw the opportunity here because you've been doing this using console for quite a while, right?
Yep.
So now you've seen the future of how you can do it here in Luna. Uh,
And I also record the 2-track mix
hmm
back into it as well at the same time. So it allows me to do not only use my effects, my 2 mix comes into it, and then I have my plugin chain to tweak the final mix when I'm done to give to the artist in there ready to go. So I can tweak it after the show, just customize the, whatever I want to do for the final mix after the show, and bounce it down, and it's already in there, ready to go.
yeah, nice. So the way you're getting so the being a digital board, obviously you've got a bunch of digital kind of option cards for I/O, right?
Yep. Yep,
So
optical light pipe is goes in and out. I'm all at 48K,
hmm
24, 48K. So it just goes in optically, and I use the optical in of the twin, and then I use the 4 outputs. I use a stereo pair of outputs
hmm
for the reverbs and a stereo pair of outputs for the delays.
gotcha.
And obviously I can control the levels individually of them here, but going into my board, I have a little extra control if need be.
hmm
If I want to just for a song, maybe bump up all the delays or a little more verbs, I can do it that way. So I don't have to touch the computer. I can just go to the console. It's right
Just
there.
exactly. So that way you can adjust your send into it. You can adjust the return level. You can do all sorts of stuff there.
Exactly.
So you really are just
Yep.
treating it as if it was a rack unit, like
That's right.
effects
Yep.
rack. Yeah,
Yeah. And
that's
so on the, if when I was going on the road, I would take the same setup and just plug it into my, profile console into the
hmm
we had a digi system on the road, and I just plug it into that, and no matter what console I use, I just bring this and I have my same rack every day.
That's awesome.
I wouldn't do it any other way.
That's great. Well, so what are kind of your go-to effects to
Well,
use for
well,
live?
I've been using the Capitol Chambers ever since it came out.
Yeah.
My personal feeling on it is that when I first heard it, it's like, oh my God, I was already in love with it because you've heard it on so many great records already.
Uh huh.
So I was so in love with that sound that I probably overused it. No, I didn't overuse it because I don't think you can. I mean, they wouldn't have said they overused it at Capitol, I don't think.
No, I mean, it's only been on
Because there's
thousands
so
of.
many sounds in it.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say there's it's only been thousands of records and
Yeah.
it lends a character to it, right? But it's still it's such a dynamic sounding chamber that like
Yeah.
you can't listen to a record and be like, oh, I know exactly what. And I guess unless maybe you're Al Schmidt and you know those like the back of your hand, but
Yeah.
they kind of adapt and they fit around so many different types of music.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious though. One of the unique options to the UAD version of Capital Chambers is that you can change things that you can't change in the real world. Like you can change the decay time, or
Yeah.
you can change the distance of the microphones. Do you find yourself adjusting those, or do you just kind of?
Totally. Yes, absolutely. Because yeah, a big ballad, you obviously want to get a little more length out of it. You
Mm-hmm.
don't need that in a, upper tempo, a faster tempo rock song, definitely, I have presets that I go to. And, a lot of times I just change the, decay time of it. But then there's the EQ, which is
Mm-hmm.
like, which is bizarre. As I've said before, it's like 500, the frequency 500 in there. You wouldn't think you would want to add 500 in a reverb,
Yeah.
but for some reason, it just sounds great in that effect. Just unbelievable. When I turn the knob, I just go, I don't know, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just so right. So
It's
that's one I've been using a lot since it came out.
hell yeah. Nice. And I remember I did the a 5 minute tip video about the Capitol Chambers, and as I was pumping drums into there, like those frequency, the EQ in there, it literally allows you to get, it's almost like you get a kick control, a snare control, and then a top end. Like it's
I
so
know.
well tuned to be able to help you shape what's coming back out of it. That
Yeah.
you can throw anything in there and come back with something that just really glues and sits around your input signals.
Yeah.
But so is this something though that do you change it every night? Do you change it once a week? Like how often?
Yeah. No, I start off with this template to start, but I obviously adjust everything for the band,
hmm
a rock band, obviously I'm going to just scale everything back, use less effects. If it's a blues project, blues band, which we do a lot of various stuff here, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of blues stuff, a lot of just kind of everything. Um, so I change it depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go back to the EMT plates and, the 140. And,
Mm-hmm.
I'll put the 250 on as well a lot. It's just a generic effects unit for instruments. A lot of times the 250 works great
Yeah.
for instruments and stuff for
Do you,
me.
do you ever
And
venture
it's just
out
my
into the
taste on it, though.
Do you ever venture into those alternate modes in the 250 of the chorus and flat?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
nice.
yeah. We had one at the studio. I worked in LA at the studio, Fidelity Studios out in LA.
Mm-hmm.
They already bought one of the, I think the first ones in LA. It was $20,000 back then.
Oh wow.
And oh my God, the first time I heard that on drums, uh, the first time you hear digital reverb on drums when you're a kid
Mm-hmm.
and you've never heard it before, it's like the first time you eat chocolate. Your head blows up. Yeah.
And so do you? I mean, do you still get that feeling ever? Like, has that
Oh
happened to you?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing I could have one.
Mm-hmm.
And the AMS, a lot of the things I have, they're in there. We had the uh, 33609 I use across the bus.
Mm-hmm.
It's across my bus permanently. Um, so I know it. And in an AMS, I have an AMS, and when that came out, it's like, oh God, I can retire the AMS. Here's an AMS without noise. Unbelievable.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't have a huge hiss to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just being able to have these things, the 224, where
Yep.
it's stupid.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's
So what do you? So I noticed. Speaking of the AMS, you have a channel set up in the session dedicated for the AMS. What
I always have an AMS on every session. Yeah,
what are some of your favorite programs in there?
I use non-lin, of course,
Mm-hmm.
non-lin, and just the ambience. Just when you turn it on, it just program one. It's just something about it. It's just right.
Uh-huh.
It's just right.
Yep. You don't even have to
Uh,
venture into the other You're just like
of course,
instantiated.
I
Yeah.
do. You know, I've learned a lot to, you know, stop using too many presets, doing the same thing over and over, and just press the button, skip through, and see what sits in the track.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I highly advise people to. I know it's good to use presets a lot, and I have to start with presets sometimes here just for time constraints
Yeah.
if I'm doing a show. But, if I'm mixing something, I try not to immediately start with a preset. I just try to start with wherever it starts and then just go through the settings until one just sits right.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
know
with
a
the
lot of engineers talk about doing it that way.
Yeah, well, and there's always kind of a thing, right? Because sometimes you may have a concept in your mind of exactly what you need, and you know exactly. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, right now I'm hearing the non-linear. I'm hearing like a random the room algorithm with tight, right? And then you can just shape it really quick and then match a vision for it. But other times it's fun to kind of go hunting and see like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what
I
fits.
like not knowing what I want and finding new things because that's when you expand yourself as an engineer. And I mean, every engineer, we're all just a collection of our experiences. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's great to go back to a time where you just hunt through things, working with Daryl and John. I mean, Daryl loves to do that. Just get a new keyboard. He doesn't know much. Just go through it.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even look at the sound, he
Yeah.
just goes through it until it hits him, and like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the records, the sound that he'll use is not something that you would choose if you had to look at the name. And, I found a lot of great presets that I just didn't look at the name. And if I had, looked at the name, I probably wouldn't have chosen it,
You probably would
you
have
know?
skipped it right over. You're like, yeah, there's.
Yeah.
Well, and you've done some preset stuff for us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What? So speaking of naming presets, how do you approach making your preset names?
Oh, I mean, don't you hate naming presets?
I
It's
do.
like the worst thing because they've all been using, what do you call it? The same old thing, fat snare one, fat
Mm-hmm.
snare. I mean, my idea of a fat snare and everybody's idea, you know, doesn't always work in every track. So it's really hard to put a name on it. I hate saying a name because it worked on somebody else's track and it was a bad snare, but the gain staging could be totally different.
Yep.
It doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
especially with EQs. In fact, that just happened where I was scrolling through it and it said bad snare or something. And I was like, it's not. And then, I realized, well, of course it's not, because this is a different snare. It's a different situation.
Yep, different
it's
source
almost
and
unfair to put a name on it, but you have to.
Yep. You got to at least make it. And there's a couple. I've seen a few presets where you can definitely tell like they're just being sarcastic with it in a fun way. They're having fun with it, and like
I like those better.
Right? Yeah, me too. Yeah. Nice. And then
that setting is always great.
Right. Snare slapper.
Yeah.
So I noticed your third chain on here. You've got the Korg SDD, and then also the Dimension D after it.
Yeah. I like to widen things out a little bit. Sometimes get them in or out of the center, depending on the song. Sometimes for me, like if it's a bluesy show, you can keep all the delays right in the center and stuff. But if it's a more open, slower tempo song, I want to kind of get it out of the middle a little bit, so that'll spread it. So I can just go over and widen it out a little bit and mix it in and just turn up the blend a little bit if I want to get it out of the middle a little bit. Plus, it just gives it a nice shimmer too.
Yeah. Well, in the SDD, which program are you using in there? Are you using one of the stereo programs, or are you using one of the ones that kind of keeps it locked in?
Yeah, the mono-ish one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like to start with that at first, and then if I want to widen it out, I'll go for that. But generally, in live, I got to be careful with too many delays because the stage here is pretty small. So everything is getting a delay on it. So I got to be careful having too many delays, because nobody is farther than 8 feet from anybody else.
Yeah.
Which is just socially distanced enough.
Well, and so are these effects just for the stream side of things, or are these effects also available for front of house?
No, just for the stream side. When I go to the front of house, I have a whole nother setup for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, man, it's super fun sitting here and geeking out and talking about the plugins, but actually it would be even more fun, I think, to maybe hear some stuff on there. I think you've got it rigged up so we can actually hear a little bit.
I've got a show that we just did before, not long before the shutdown. We did with Utopia, Chasm Sultan's band that was just here.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
He's doing, actually, I just saw he's doing a in-car show, I think today or tomorrow.
Okay.
At some place where everybody drives up and sits in your car and watches a show. I'm wondering how that's going to be.
So it's like the drive-through movie of a show.
Drive-through movie of the concerts. We'll have to see how that flies.
Right. Well, I mean, you could do some fun stuff with that, especially I think some of those places, right, they're using FM transmitter where they're basically broadcasting it so everyone gets to hear it in their own space.
Yep, in their own thing.
Yeah.
And if you have a crappy stereo in your car, oh, man.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. Well, so do you mind...
You want me to switch over to the other thing? Yeah.
Well, actually, let's leave this one let's leave the Luna one up, because
leave this up, right.
Knowing our crowd, what I'm pretty sure they'd love to see is kind of see what you're using, see what your intuition kind of pulls you to, and feel free to kind of pull stuff up, tweak it, and like kind of show us some tricks of the trade there.
Yeah, sure.
I got
Nice. Oh, sorry, I muted your mic and now it won't let me unmute it from here, Peter. There we go.
There we go.
Dude, that was rad. What? So, all right, so many questions. First of all, what keyboard was that?
A Nord. He
That was
had
a
a
Nord.
Nord and a Prophet. Yeah.
Dude, it's such a lot.
Nord and a,
That had some like cool, bit
yeah.
crushy, like weird effects thing that during a solo.
Yeah, that was the Prophet. He did the solo on the Prophet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking. It's so rad. So
Yeah.
what? So you were saying it looked like you were sending some vocals to the delay. Some of the drum like snare was going into the AMS.
Yep.
Um,
Correct.
well, and I was also blown away when you sold up the drums midway through there. Uh, How do you get it so clean in such a small room?
I close mic everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty tight. I do gate stuff.
Okay.
I gate, but I gate. I don't turn mics off.
Mm-hmm.
I gate to like about a -9 dB.
Okay, so
Um,
just a little pull down, not
I
like a
duck them
full.
down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you turn things down too much, it sounds weird to me.
It does.
Um,
Yeah.
in a live setting, it's okay. Like in front of house, I can get away with it because you're hearing the drums a lot in the house.
Uh-huh.
But on a record, or on a recording, it sounds a little weird to turn stuff off. So, ducking down, I can't stand gates that don't have a ducking amount.
The range control.
Yeah, range control is so necessary.
Yeah.
But, you could use an expander then if you want. But anyways, yeah. So that allows it to tighten up the sound a little bit
Mm-hmm.
without making it sound robotic and like a drum machine or whatever.
Yeah.
Just what I like.
Right. Just your
Everybody's
vibe.
got. Yeah, it's my thing. Yeah.
Nice.
I played drums growing up, so I played drums and guitar, so I hear drums.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So so when you're miking drums for stuff like this, are you doing, single kick mic, single snare mic, tom
I always use
overhead?
two
Okay.
kick mics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, two kick mics. I put an in and an out,
Yep.
just to be able to balance between whatever I might need.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if it's a heavy duty track like a rock track, you want a little more point of the inside mic and
Yep.
less. So it just gives you a lot of control. And since we have so many tracks, just record them.
Mm-hmm.
Put 5 mics on it. If you got the time, do it.
Yeah.
Because personally, I've got to learn by experimentation over the years a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and watching other people do things. You luckily get to see other people do things, and then you get to hear it.
Yeah.
So my suggestion for people, for anybody, and myself included, and I always do it, put as many up as you can. I do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get microphones to try out all the time, and I'll put them up and just record them and listen back and see what they sound like, and find some winners. I've bought some really weird microphones over the years that I begin to like.
Well, and it's so important. Like, I hope everyone picks up what you just said there. Of like, it's crucial to be continuing to experiment. So you do what you know, and then do something new alongside it, and then because you have to have a reference point, right? You can't just like one day be like, all right, I'm not using these mics I know anymore. I'm going to try using these ones I've never touched before. You would be pulling your hair out. You would have such a terrible day. But if you kind of start with like, all right, I know I'm good. I'm safe. I got this on lockdown. Now let me experiment with these new ideas. Either this new equipment or this new technique. I picked up from somewhere. Like, it's that constant state of experimentation. And if you've got the time and you've got the mic cable, if you've got the inputs and the resources to be able to do it, you got to do it.
Like if I'll do when we do shows here, and it's just been such a blessing to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Is I have so many bands that'll come in, and it's usually around 32 at the most inputs,
Mm-hmm.
but I can do 64. So I'll just take any of the extra stuff and put them at the end and record them.
Yeah.
And just mess with them. And then I have a recording of it to know. I don't have to use it.
Exactly.
I always go with what I know will work, because of course when I'm doing a show, I gotta, 8 o'clock show's gotta happen, stream's gotta happen.
Yep.
So I go with what I know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of times when I'll be backing it up and recording a bunch of other things to listen to it later because I've got the opportunity to do it. And, luckily, every day I've got a show in a band, so I've got the opportunity to do it. But that being said, uh, we have the luxury now of people sharing sessions, and you can just send
I
and you can
know.
download sessions on the internet, and you can listen to mics and stuff, which is like, God, it just thinking about that. If I would have been able to do that when I was younger, when before any of this stuff was easy to do, oh
Yep.
man, to be able to listen to different mics, what they really sound like,
Mm-hmm.
and get to experience mixing with them. Oh my goodness, that's just such a blessing to be able to do that now.
Oh yeah,
It's
absolutely,
great.
and it's really cool too to see like just yeah the amount of resources that are available to people to learn and to experiment and try
Oh,
because
it's so great.
it's so good, man. And like it is a big thing. Like I take a lot away from my time in New York City being a house engineer at it was a rehearsal slash recording studio. So it was constantly, everyone would book in 5 hour blocks, and that's it. That was the time that, they couple $100,
That's
and
what you get.
that's what you get. And you'd have people who wanted to record 5 songs in 5 hours. You'd have rappers who want to do like 20 songs, do a whole mixtape in five. Like you'd have these ridiculous challenges, but like rather than saying you guys don't know what you're doing, trust me, like we gotta do it my way. I would always you have to accept that challenge and enjoy it, like find a way, like all right man, like let's do 20 songs in 5 hours,
Yeah.
let's go. Like you're mixing as they're tracking and trying to bounce and be super fit. Like you learn all these kind of little time hacks and ways to get delivered
And
good
that's
quality.
that's one of the good things that you have now in this with you know using the Luna stuff and all the UA
Yeah.
is being able to not necessarily commit if you don't really feel like it, and then going back later
Mm-hmm.
and listening to what different preamps sound like on stuff and
Yeah.
get that input that you need. You need to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who just tells you, "Oh, you go use this preamp, it's great." That's great, but it's not your taste.
Yep.
You got to build your taste, your sound of what you like.
Yep.
And it's great to go and emulate, Chris Lord Alge or Bob Clearmount or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, we all do it. Everybody does it, and it's awesome to do that. But it's more awesome to be a hybrid, be bits of them, and just be you, and just say, well, I like this, and I'm committing to this, because
Yeah.
that's how those guys got to where they are, and that's how you'll get to where you are. And you have the tools now.
Mm-hmm.
You can go in and listen to what a 1073 sounds like, or you can listen to the UA front end or the Helios front end. You can go listen to all these things and you know taste the fine difference.
Exactly. Well, and it does refine your palate, right? That's kind of that's the
Oh,
point that people
so
get to.
much, man.
So how would
So much.
you?
It makes you a snob like me. No. Yeah,
Well,
you'll know. You just know the difference between like an Oscar Mayer hot dog and a Hebrew National. You'll know the difference
mm-hmm.
and know what you like. They're both good. Just you'll know what you like.
Yeah.
And they're
Well,
all good gear, man. It's all great gear.
yeah.
All the stuff that you guys have modeled is, of course, the top choice stuff that people would select.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, God, we wouldn't have been able to have a room full of that stuff.
No.
There's no doubt. Now we can. So let's
Well,
move forward and use it.
well, and so have you gotten a chance to play around inside of Luna with like stuff like the new summing and the analog tape?
Oh my God, the difference it makes. It's, yeah, it's like going over to the clubhouse in the Neve Summing, like Paul Antonell at the clubhouse. I know
Mm-hmm.
his console, it's got that glue, that sound, just like
Yeah.
my SSL has that sound, that glue that happens when you run it through a console. It gives you that cohesion, and it just helps you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have to try it. For the guys that mix in the box, um, I'm I'm not good at it mixing in the box myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting better at it. I wouldn't say I'm great in
Why?
the box
What
mixer.
makes you say that? What's the
Uh,
difficulty that you face in doing all in the box?
my mind knowing that I could just go on a console and be done
Uh
in
huh.
a fraction of the time.
Yep.
It's just that I need faders. I can do all the things, and I like to have it all in front of me to just so much faster for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then again, I've watched guys do it in the box, and they're freaking quick.
Yeah.
So whatever tool works for you, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just lucky that I have a I've always had a console,
Yeah.
and I can mix on a console. Um, it's just a little more visceral too. You can just reach over and do something.
Yeah.
But then again, dude, I see you fly around your computer. You're a monster on that thing too.
Yeah. Well, and that's it's that's the way I grew. I grew up. I've only ever known making music with computers. So yeah,
Yeah,
the mouse and keyboard thing doesn't to me it doesn't feel like a disconnection or barrier to doing to be able to take what I want to hear and make it happen.
yeah,
But at the same time, obviously, I've got racks of analog gear. I quickly learned once I got working in real studios the value that analog processing and moving electricity and having compressors and EQs work in
yeah,
this completely analog domain. I got really spoiled really fast with how much I enjoyed that sound and how much it made a difference to
yeah,
what I was working on. And again, you bring it up. It's like to me, it's speed. It's that head start. It's like there's a reason
yeah,
why I use the same mix bus chain on everything I do because that's my head start. That's my I can if I'm pushing into those in the right spot. I know that my mix is going to be in the ballpark with every other mix I've ever done. All
yeah.
these things are little just they're all time hacks to be able to make more music and make it sound better and make it happen faster. And yeah,
Hmm.
I've now with using the Luna stuff, like using the Neve summing, I've been kind of obsessing over learning, really trying to learn that sound and learn like what it adds, what it offers,
Oh God.
and
Yeah, the ability to just punch it in and out across the whole mix, or take oxide too, which
oh
is
yeah,
I love oxide. I have to say it's great. I love the Studio too.
mm-hmm,
They're both great.
yep,
Um, but just being able to do things like, you know, take something, run it into tape, and soften the attack of something by
mm-hmm,
just slamming it real hard into tape if you want, and it's such a powerful tool.
oh yeah,
Um, that we used to use when we had in the day, and obviously, like even just like with the AMS there, it sounds different when you push it hard into the front end of it. It gets a little more aggressive when you grab that front knob on it, just like the unit
yeah,
does. When I used to go over and just touch my unit and just like literally which seems like a half a number on the front of the AMS, it just all of a sudden becomes like it's an attack dog, from a puppy, just touching it, the front end of
uh-huh,
the AMS. And it's captured in the plugin so well too, because that's exactly how, when I used to grab the front and I would just touch it, literally going between, 7 and 8,
yeah,
and I'd be halfway there and it's like, whoa, it's
oh,
too much, and it's like, was that a half a dB?
uh-huh,
No, definitely not. But whatever it was, it changed this beast.
yep,
So, experiment with it. The way that UA's modeled analog stuff, it really captures all of those little nuances of it, which,
mm-hmm,
having had the gear, I hear it, just
yeah,
like all the manly stuff.
yep,
I have all the manly stuff at home. And the Veramu is another one that's amazing because
magic,
I use that across my mixes on my bus, but I really don't compress on it. I just run
mm-hmm,
through it,
yeah,
and it doesn't do any gain
just
reduction. It just goes through it, and just the sound going through it just makes it just more betterer. It's
yeah,
just
it
better
really,
going through it, and the plugin does the same thing.
mm-hmm,
I didn't think it would be able to capture that nuance, but it sure does, man. It's
yeah,
really amazing.
it really
It
is.
uses lots of resource to do it, but God, it's worth it.
Oh, totally. Well,
So
we
good.
had Will Shanks on last Friday for the Q&A. As you know, we came out with the 1084 plugin, so spent the whole week geeking out,
Oh
talking about
God.
presets, and just loving on the Neve EQ, and really kind of talking about
Yeah.
the gain staging inside of that plugin. And it's exactly what you're speaking to here. Of like we've now got so many different crayons in our coloring box that like you can be very specific about which shade of blue you want, and like if you can you can move it over into the purples if you really want to by adjusting the gain staging and compensating there.
Yeah.
But for
Yeah. I
people,
have 1066s. I have a bunch of 1066s, and oh man, the 1084s. Just having that extra frequency
I know.
control is heaven.
Mm-hmm.
1073s, it's obviously just another step, but
Yep.
the 1084 is so phenomenal.
So how do you find yourself choosing between the different major, I guess called the major food groups of preamps and EQs? Like, how do you go between SSLs or APIs or Neves? Like, what's kind of what leads you into one of those over the other?
Uh, I'd like to say that I get to make these, choices. Sometimes just time, if you have the time and it's there,
Uh huh.
if I go up to the clubhouse to record on his board, I'll use his board because he's got, the Neve board. Um, there's nothing wrong with using the SSLs too,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that stuff. But I think that, you know, I've gone with using the ISAs because they have a neutrality to it in a way,
Mm-hmm.
but they also have a color in a way. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's just I'm so familiar with it.
Yep.
I'm so familiar with that sound, and I've been
Mm-hmm.
using it for so many years. I go for what I'm familiar with because a lot of times I don't think there's ever a time as a recording engineer, and I'm sure everybody else out there will attest to this, that you have the luxury of spending as much time as you want to do stuff. You just don't. We're only selling time,
Uh huh.
and you can't sit there and leave people sitting around for 4 hours while you're, listening to different things on a tracking session. Now, maybe if you're doing uh, vocals and guitars, but what vocalist wants to sit there and audition preamps with you?
Oh,
Nah,
you
yeah,
kind of get
right.
that, you kind of get that one shot,
If I
right?
saw a show of hands right now, I don't think anybody would have their hands up for very long
Right. You
because
get
you burn out every singer.
You do, right? You get like maybe if you the trick I would always do is I would set up multiple mics. So I'd set up like three or
Yeah,
four, especially if it was a new vocalist that I hadn't worked with before. You set up three or four and you put them right next to each other, and you just sing part of the verse on each one. And you, for me, I would always watch their face. So I'd always be looking
yeah,
at them to see like did one of them hit them, like I don't care, I'm gonna ask them afterwards how they felt about it, and they're gonna, sometimes they're precise, sometimes they're wishy-washy, but you can kind of tell both from what you hear and also
yeah,
from what you see and how they react to it. Did something
yeah,
kind of pull it, did something pull it to them? And it's not for me to choose that. It's up to the vocal. It is always up to the performer to really react to a sound. And
yeah,
if you see
yeah,
a glimmer of something, you're like, oh, that's it. That's the mic for the session. And
yeah.
the same thing for the
And
pre.
you'll go to things that you know. I mean, you'll know
Mm-hmm.
that okay, an Avalon sounds great on vocalists if you're doing a nice ballad, and
Yep.
that's where your experiences come in,
Exactly.
on something is where to steer it. And yeah, of course, I'll choose certain things for um, if I have a choice. But a lot of times this is what you got to use it, and you got to get moving.
Yep.
You got to just do the session.
Right. Well, especially
I
if you
think
got a
that's
show at 8 o'clock.
probably 90% of everybody's session is this is what I own, this is what I have,
Yep.
and of course I'll use this preamp for the guitars and this preamp for the kick drum and this and that. I have the luxury of doing that now, but
Mm-hmm.
the in the past I didn't have that luxury.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but now we do.
I know, right?
Now we do.
Now we're all, especially all of us Apollo users, we're all super spoiled with
You
the.
know what? Yeah, I'm jealous because I really wish I had that back then
Mm-hmm.
because man, it's like, wait, you guys got such a head start on all of us. It's amazing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You can
That's all right.
unlimited Neve preamps across all of your
I've got it
inputs.
too. Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
know. I'm happy we all got it. It's great. It's a joy.
Well, awesome, man. Well, looking at my question, so the one thing that as we were talking about earlier is obviously this is it's kind of a strange time for music and audio, and you guys were ahead of the
Yeah.
game with doing live stream stuff, but uh,
Mm.
do you have any, what's on your horizon, and what do you kind of see as like the transition back into doing
Yeah, we'll
shows and
transition.
stuff?
Yeah, we're going to transition back. Actually, just before uh, we started this, I was looking at the roadmap of what we're going to transition back into doing shows. I'm sure we'll transition to it soon, and shows will be thin in the beginning, and then it'll build back up, and then people get back to normal. Look, this can only last so long because they'll have a vaccination soon for
Mm-hmm.
this thing, and they'll have some kind of it's look. It can only suck until they come out with this vaccination, I guess, for it,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll be able to get back to it. And I think people I don't think everybody will forget this, obviously, because it's had a big impact on our lives.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to life
Hmm.
as normal. Nobody wants to be in this, sequestered lifestyle
Yeah.
anymore.
Well, it was.
And look, people are getting creative. They're doing car concerts and stuff like that.
Hmm.
That's good for the time being. And the live streaming stuff that's going on now, like what you're doing, Ben, blows me away. How many of these that you do
Yeah.
in a day? The amount of technology that we're using to do this right now is is it's crazy, man. We've got a lot of things going on to just make these things happen, and it's amazing you guys are doing this and how you've got this so dialed in.
Hmm.
Um, because it ain't easy. It's
No.
not easy doing this. It's not easy doing it well too. And
Yeah.
um,
Well, the
you do it great.
oh, well, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's a the coolest part for me too is it's creating a sense of community. We're all in a big, weird, shared experience right now. That's
Yeah,
that's keeping us inside our homes, keeping trying to beat this thing collectively by not going out and doing what we normally do. So we all quickly had to pivot to this like, what's a different way of doing something similar to what we all kind of want and need as humans and as nerds who want to hang out and talk about gear all the time.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but it was funny. We were talking last week about it. I don't know how we stumbled on, it, but we were talking about how you sterilize microphones.
yeah,
we were talking of you were like, hey, like for most vocalists, you would think would have their own microphone, but if not, how
yeah.
important stuff like that's going to
I've been
be.
doing it for a long time. I was telling Ben that uh, a singer that I work with got viral meningitis, and they traced it back to a microphone because somebody else got it, and they traced it back to a microphone at a festival.
Oh,
And microphones in general has have an antimicrobial foam in them
hmm,
that is good for a while, but it doesn't last forever.
yeah,
And the germs build up on it. And if you've never changed the ball head of your microphone, they last a few years, and inside it'll just turn to mush, and the antimicrobial properties won't uh, be there after a while,
hmm,
and it'll just the germs will stay there for quite a while. So you can sterilize it with UVC light.
okay,
You can get on eBay. They sell them everywhere, especially now.
hmm,
A sterilizer that nail salons use to sterilize their tools,
hmm,
and it looks about the size of a microwave oven, and they're about $100 or $200. They're probably more now because they're popular.
yeah,
But I put the microphones in every week, and sometimes, depending on the shows, I'll put them in after every show,
hmm,
and just give them a quick sterilization. You can do the same thing, obviously, with alcohol too,
yeah,
but this kind of gets in. I take off the head of the mic, and I do it because this singer actually passed away after
oh,
getting viral meningitis. They were an older singer,
hmm,
and so every singer should have your own microphone. Please get your own microphones. They're inexpensive. There's so many great microphones out there.
yep,
Um, Go try some out. Go try some Mic Tech mics. I love Mic Tech mics. I use the PM9s right
hmm,
here all the time, and I love Mic Tech mics. There's so many great microphones out there,
yep.
um, and
It's
bring
worth
your
the.
own mic
I
to a
was like,
gig.
it's worth that investment. Like the couple hundred
Yeah,
bucks, like the
yeah.
couple $100 for a really good one. And especially if this is your
It's your
career,
sound
it's your
too.
sound. Exactly.
Yeah,
Like, why would you not want? It's like a guitarist like showing up without a guitar in a way of like, oh yeah, like
yeah.
I'll just use whatever house guitar. Like, it's
You can do it, but do you
exactly.
wanna? Is the question.
That's the thing, exactly. It's like I don't know who else has touched this one. So, well, Peter, man, this has been super fun hanging out with you and learning about kind
Yeah,
of what
thanks,
goes
Ben.
into creating these shows. And I thought it was such a cool way that you've integrated the Twin and Luna and UAD effects
Yeah,
and
I hope I
everything.
see more people do it. I'm just shocked that more people don't show up because now I see so many engineers will come in, and they'll use whatever's on the board. That's fine. We can
Mm-hmm.
do that. A lot of people keep it simple, but look, man, it's not expensive to do, and I know a lot of engineers already have some UA gear,
Yeah.
so bring a laptop and set it up. It's super simple.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every live console, well, you just do it with the analog I/O or
Exactly.
with the light pipe. it's super easy to set up and do it like this, and just bring your stuff with you every day. It's
Exactly.
not hard to do.
Yeah, you get to
If
travel
I
with your
can do it,
sound.
anybody can do it.
Well, and
Yeah.
I've even seen vocalists do it where they'll have the twin. They'll bring their mic. Good check number one. They'll bring a twin with a
Yep.
laptop, and that way they can set up. And traditionally people have been doing
Hey
this using
Ben, and
console.
then you know what they also bring? They bring auto tune live.
That's it. That's exact. That is the number one included plugin for people doing running those rigs. Auto tune in the first spot.
Hopefully, you don't need it, but
Yeah, but it doesn't hurt and for some genres too. Like it's just that is the sound of those genres now. Is like it
yeah,
is an auto tune sound. So having that, being able to do it with no latency and being able to then add EQ or compression, and just deliver this like here's a great vocal sound just ready to go out to the
ready to
front of the
go.
house. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If you dial in your thing, then your monitors. If you have in ears, forget it. It's
Uh huh.
like it's you have to do it.
Yeah.
And even with just monitors, forget it. Why would you not want to have just the sound that you want? Just make sure in a live situation you mute your effects in between the songs. That's my only pet peeve. Nothing worse than a singer talking with a big reverb delay on them. It
It's really
just
nice to see
fucking
all of you
sucks.
tonight. Nice.
Uh,
Awesome. Well, Peter, man, thank you so much for spending
it's
some time
great
with us this
talking with
morning.
you.
Yeah, dude, great talking to
All
you as
right.
well. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This was super fun. Hope you guys got some good ideas and some inspiration from Peter here. And we're going to be back again tomorrow at 11 a.m. I think my microphone will be working by then. And but we'll be joined by a couple of members of Walk Off the Earth. So they're
All
all
right.
they're all kind of working from their own home studios right now, and they're just getting into Luna as well. So yeah, we're gonna hang out with them, learn about their production process as a band, and yeah, see how Luna's gonna become a part of that as well. So everybody stay safe, have a good day, and we'll see you guys back here tomorrow.
See you all.